Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Property Management 101, and today we'll be discussing living on site as an employee. If you've not already done so, please watch my disclosure video as well as my why I do this video. And if you find this video helpful and learn something new, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. In this video, I'll be reviewing things to consider as an employee if you're considering living on site. This video will really apply more to the side of the multifamily side of the industry, whether it be conventional, student, Section 8, or other types of multifamily management, but some of these things will apply as well to the single family side as well. Number one thing to consider if you're an employee considering living on site is on-call. So some employee contracts that will outline, or addendums, if you do live on site, there may be some certain periods that you'll be required to be on call, whether it be temporarily, whether it be permanently. You may ask to perform things like handling move-ins after hours, move-outs, or lockouts, or noise complaints, or special circumstances like that. This might be a part of the discount you receive living on site, but this should be outlined in the addendum or contract that you sign to live on site. Number two requirement to consider if you're moving on site is requirements. You may be held to different requirements compared to the average employee or compared to the average resident that lives on site. Here's a few examples of what I'm referring to. You may be asked to work during a storm that anyone commuting is not, because you're living on site and you're not going through maybe that snowstorm as other employees are. You may be asked to be on a month-to-month lease permanently as an employee that's living on site. You also may be asked to move off-site if you give notice within a certain amount of time after your last day of employment. So those are some things to consider as well that should be outlined in that contract agreement if you decide to move on site. And the last thing to consider if you're looking to move on site possibly as an employee is how the discount works. So I've seen this handled many different ways by many different companies. Sometimes I've seen it negotiated with pay if you're getting the offer and you're deciding to move on site at the same time. I've also seen it handled in different ways as far as what kind of discount is capped. It could be capped based off a percentage or a certain amount. You may be required to be employed so long before you be eligible to receive any type of rental discount. Ownership may have actually certain agreements that are part of their management contract when they've hired your management company. So that's something to consider as well. And that may not be something that maybe a regional or property manager may be aware of, but there may be certain requirements that were negotiated with the ownership group when they first started managing that asset. Another thing to keep in mind that your rent may be automatically deducted from your pay. So that's something else to consider when you're thinking about how the discount works. The last thing I want to mention, if you're considering moving on site when it comes to how the discount works, is keep in mind if you decide to move off site, it may not change your pay at all immediately, because keep in mind that your discount and your pay are tied to that annual budget. So if you move off site in the middle of the year and you just have a January through December budget you're in, then most likely you're not going to see any change until there's budgeted maybe pay increases, or maybe it's or maybe to the new budget season you'll see those changes. Most likely you're not going to see those changes immediately. If you did find this helpful, please feel free to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. Happy leasing!